Have you ever ignored a phone call because you thought it was spam? I almost did that night. The only reason I answered was because the caller ID showed my own phone number. I expected silence or some kind of network glitch. Instead, I heard my own voice. But it wasn't repeating what I was saying. It whispered, "If you want to stay alive, don't go home tonight." I laughed. 3 hours later, someone tried to get into my apartment. And that's when I realized the voice on the phone already knew what was going to happen. My name is Ryan. I'm 29 years old, and I work as an overnight IT technician. Most of my job is boring. I spend my nights fixing computers, restarting servers, and drinking far too much coffee. The night this happened started like every other shift. Nothing unusual. Nothing strange. If someone had told me that by sunrise I'd question everything I believed about reality, I would have laughed in their face. Around 6 months before all this happened, I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. The rent was surprisingly cheap. At first, I thought I'd gotten lucky. Later, I learned why nobody wanted to live there. The building was old. Really old. The paint peeled from the walls. The elevators barely worked. The pipes groaned every night like someone dragging heavy furniture above your ceiling. Most tenants kept to themselves. You could live there for weeks without seeing the same neighbor twice. The landlord, Mr. Harris, was a quiet man in his 60s. The first day I moved in, he handed me the apartment key and said something strange. "Don't answer your door after 3 in the morning." I laughed. He didn't. I asked why. He simply shrugged. "People knock on the wrong doors." That was all he said. I assumed he meant drunk people. Nothing more. 4 months. My life stayed completely normal. Work. Home. Sleep. Repeat. Until a rainy Thursday night. My shift ended just after midnight. The streets were almost empty. Rain tapped softly against the windshield while I drove home. The radio kept losing signal, so I turned it off. Silence filled the car. Halfway home, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Incoming call. Ryan. My own number. I frowned. That shouldn't be possible. I answered anyway. "Hello." Nothing. Only soft breathing. It sounded distant. Like someone was standing in a large empty room. I spoke again. "Who's this?" For several seconds. Nothing. Then, a whisper. "Ryan." The voice sounded exactly like mine. Every word. Every breath. Every pause. I nearly dropped my phone. "This isn't funny," I said. The voice ignored me. Instead it whispered, "Don't go home." The call ended. I stared at the screen. No number. No call history. Nothing. It was as if the phone call had never happened. I pulled over and restarted my phone. Everything looked normal. I convinced myself it had to be some strange software bug. Technology does weird things sometimes. Right? I arrived at my apartment building around 1:15 a.m. The parking lot was empty except for my car. Rain still poured from the sky. I hurried inside. The lobby lights flickered once as I walked toward the elevator. The elevator doors opened immediately. Inside, someone had scratched a sentence into the metal wall. "Don't listen to the voices." I had never noticed that before. Maybe it had always been there. Maybe I simply hadn't paid attention. I pressed the 4th floor button. As the elevator climbed, the lights blinked twice. Then everything went dark. Only for 2 seconds. But those 2 seconds felt endless. When the lights returned, the elevator had stopped. The display still read floor 2. The doors slowly opened. Nobody stood outside. Just a long, empty hallway. Then, I heard it. A phone ringing. Not mine. Someone else's. Somewhere down that hallway. The ringtone echoed through the darkness. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3 rings. Then, someone answered. I couldn't hear the conversation. Only whispers. The elevator doors closed before I could see anything else. When I finally reached my floor, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been watching me. The hallway outside my apartment was silent. Too silent. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. Everything looked normal. I locked the deadbolt. Made some instant noodles. Turned on the television. Anything to distract myself from that bizarre phone call. Around 2:45 a.m. I started feeling tired. I brushed my teeth. Changed into comfortable clothes. Turned off every light except the small lamp beside my bed. Just as I lay down, my phone vibrated. Another call. Incoming call. Ryan. My own number. This time, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. I lifted the phone to my ear. Before I could speak, my own voice whispered. He's already inside the building. My entire body froze. Then, from somewhere beyond my apartment door, I heard 3 slow knocks. Knock. 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 I wasn't alone anymore. For nearly 10 seconds, I couldn't breathe. The 3 knocks echoed through my apartment. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just slow. And strangely calm. Knock. 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 It sounded less like someone wanted to come in, and more like they already knew I was inside. My phone was still pressed against my ear. Then my own voice whispered again. Don't make a sound. The call disconnected. The apartment became completely silent. I slowly placed the phone on my bed and stared at the front door. Nothing. No more knocking. No footsteps. No voices. Just silence. I reached for the baseball bat I kept beside my closet. It wasn't for self-defense. A friend had given it to me years ago after a softball game. That night, it suddenly became the most valuable thing I owned. Every step toward the front door felt heavier than the last. My heartbeat was so loud I could hear it in my ears. Finally, I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. No one. I stayed there for another minute. Still nothing. Maybe whoever knocked had already left. I unlocked the deadbolt just enough to crack the door open. The hallway lights flickered. I looked left. Nothing. I looked right. Nothing. Just as I was about to close the door, I noticed something lying on the floor. A black smartphone. It was face down. Less than 2 feet from my apartment. I didn't remember seeing it before. I carefully picked it up. The screen lit up automatically. No lock screen. No wallpaper. Only one sentence in white letters against a black background. Don't let him know you found this. A cold wave rushed through my body. Before I could react, the screen went black. Then the phone began vibrating violently in my hand. Incoming call. Ryan. My own number. But this wasn't my phone. It was the one I had just picked up. I answered without thinking. This time, I didn't hear my own voice. Instead, I heard someone breathing heavily. Almost as if they had been running. Then a frightened man whispered, "He's coming upstairs." The line went dead. At that exact moment, the elevator at the end of the hallway dinged. The doors slowly opened. No one stepped out. At least, that's what I thought. Then, a tall figure wearing a black hoodie walked into the hallway. His face was hidden beneath the hood. His hands were inside his pockets. He wasn't looking around. He wasn't searching. He was walking directly toward my apartment. Every instinct screamed at me to run. I slammed the door shut, locked every lock, pulled a chair against the handle. My breathing became uncontrollable. Then, my phone rang again. Not the strange phone. Mine. I answered immediately. My own voice sounded panicked. "Ryan. He's not looking for your apartment." There was a pause. Then the voice whispered, "He's looking for you." Before I could respond, something slammed against my front door. Once. Twice. 3 times. The entire apartment shook. The chair slid backward across the floor. Another crash. This one even harder. Wood cracked near the lock. I grabbed the baseball bat with trembling hands. If the door opened, I had no plan. I just knew I wasn't going down without a fight. Then, everything stopped. Complete silence. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Nothing. I waited another full minute before daring to move. Slowly, I walked toward the peephole again. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely see. The hallway was empty. The hooded man had vanished. But written across my apartment door, in something that looked disturbingly fresh, were 4 words. "I found you, Ryan." And beneath the message, someone had drawn a phone. The same model I had just picked up outside my door. That's when I heard a new sound. A notification. Not from my phone, but from the mysterious black phone lying on my kitchen table. The screen lit up by itself. One new voicemail. No caller. No number. Just a timestamp. 3 days from now. I slowly pressed play, and heard my own voice scream. The recording ended with one horrifying sentence. "If you're hearing this, I'm already dead." For several seconds, I couldn't move. I replayed the voicemail. The scream sounded real. Not acted. Not edited. It was the kind of scream a person makes when they've completely given up hope. Then came those final words again. "If you're hearing this, I'm already dead." The recording ended with static. I looked at the timestamp one more time. 3 days from now. That made no sense. How could a voicemail exist from the future? I checked the date on both phones. Both showed today's date. No mistake. No glitch. I decided I had enough. I grabbed my car keys. I wasn't staying in that apartment another minute. As I opened my front door, I looked down the hallway. Empty. The writing on my door was still there. "I found you, Ryan." I hurried toward the elevator. Just as I pressed the button, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. Heavy. Steady. I turned around. The hallway was empty. The footsteps stopped. I pressed the elevator button again. Nothing. The display was dead. No lights. No movement. I didn't wait. I ran toward the emergency stairwell and pushed the door open. The stairwell lights were dim. Each floor echoed with my footsteps. I reached the 3rd floor. Then the 2nd. Just as I was about to reach the 1st floor, I heard another door slam open somewhere above me. Someone else was in the stairwell. Walking down. Not running. Walking. One step. Every 3 seconds. Almost like they wanted me to hear them. I started moving faster. The footsteps behind me never changed speed. No matter how quickly I ran. They stayed the same distance away. Finally, I burst into the lobby. I ran outside into the rain. My car was exactly where I'd parked it. I jumped inside, locked the doors, and started the engine. The dashboard clock blinked for a second. Then reset itself to 3:17 a.m. The same time every strange phone call had happened. The radio suddenly turned on by itself. Only static. Then, my own voice came through the speakers. Don't drive. Too late. I slammed the car into reverse and sped out of the parking lot. I didn't even know where I was going. I just wanted to get away. 5 minutes later, I noticed something strange in my rearview mirror. A pair of headlights. Far behind me. At first, I thought it was just another car. But every time I turned, it turned. Every traffic light. Every empty street. It stayed behind me. I decided to test it. I made 4 random turns through a quiet neighborhood. The headlights never disappeared. Someone was following me. My phone rang again. I answered without taking my eyes off the road. My own voice sounded desperate. Ryan, don't let him see your face. What are you talking about? I shouted. Who is he? There was silence. Then, very quietly, the voice answered. You're following the wrong car. I felt my stomach drop. I looked back into the mirror again. The headlights were gone. Completely gone. I slammed on the brakes. There hadn't been a single side street. There was nowhere for that car to disappear. Then, I noticed something much worse. The passenger seat beside me. Someone had left a folded piece of paper there. I knew for a fact it hadn't been there before. With shaking hands, I opened it. Inside was a simple handwritten message. Stop looking behind you. I froze. Because I had already looked into the rearview mirror. Very slowly. Without thinking. My eyes lifted toward it one last time. There. Sitting silently in the back seat. Was the man in the black hoodie. His face was still hidden. He wasn't moving. He wasn't breathing. He was simply watching me. I spun around instantly. The back seat was empty. When I looked forward again, my phone began ringing. Incoming call. Ryan. This time, I was almost afraid to answer. I finally pressed the green button. My own voice whispered only 6 words. He's closer than you think. The call ended. Then, someone gently knocked. On the driver's side window. Knock. 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 I slowly turned around. At the end of the aisle, the man in the black hoodie was standing there. This time, he wasn't standing still. He began walking toward me. Slowly. 1 step. Then another. His footsteps made no sound. It didn't even look like he was walking. It looked like he was gliding. The cashier could see him now too. The coffee cup slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor. "Yes, sir, who are you?" he asked with a trembling voice. The hooded man didn't answer. He kept walking toward me. Suddenly, the lights flickered once. Then again. Then a 3rd time. Every time the store became darker, the hooded man somehow moved several feet closer. But whenever the lights came back on, he froze in place. My phone vibrated. Incoming call. Ryan. I answered immediately. My own voice screamed. Keep him in the light. He moves faster in the dark. The call disconnected. I looked at the cashier. Turn on every light in the building. Now. Without asking questions, he ran behind the counter. He switched on the storage room lights. The restroom lights. The outdoor floodlights. Everything. Within seconds. The entire gas station was flooded with bright white light. The hooded man stopped moving. For the first time. He slowly tilted his head. As if he finally recognized me. Then his body began to blur. Like smoke dissolving into the air. Within seconds. He disappeared completely. I collapsed onto one knee. For a moment. I thought it was finally over. Then. Every light in the store went out. Total darkness. The cashier fumbled for a flashlight and switched it on. The narrow beam slowly swept across the aisles. Nothing. No one. Then he pointed the flashlight toward the glass entrance. We both froze. Standing outside the front door. Wasn't one hooded figure. There were dozens. All wearing black hoodies. Standing perfectly still. Watching us. None of them moved. None of them spoke. They simply stared. A second later. The emergency generator kicked in. The lights came back. I looked outside again. The parking lot was empty. No hooded figures. Only rain. Then. My phone buzzed with a text message. No sender. Just one sentence. They didn't come for you. Before I could even process it. Another message arrived. They came for me. My heart nearly stopped. Because. Both messages. Had been sent. From my own phone number.